Hi, everyone. Welcome to Free Thinking Through the Fourth Turning. My name is Sasha Stone.
America is the poem. Rain washes the dust from train windows as we barrel through the poem of America. From New York to Chicago, I watch it scroll by, frame by frame and line by line. Rivers and lakes reflect the pale winter sky and haunt my vision. America, what you were and will be again, I see you in silos rising like fists from farmland. America, the land itself says, fight. America, I see you in chipped brick walls, stained with faded logos. I see you there, waiting to rise from gone-under towns and cities spangled in endless dusk. We can see you now, emerging from boarded-up corner bars, baseball fields barbed with weeds, hollowed-out churches and factories folded in on themselves, like crushed cans reclaimed by the wild. And we see you, and we know you, in ragtag families packed into vehicles, to head to church on a Sunday, or to visit a grandfather who remembers war and what it means to survive, for love of the country that survives because of him and his brothers, gone. America, for love, we go on. America, you defy the narratives imposed to poison your majesty. All the poison imposed to warp us away from our axis, the true, the beautiful, what binds us to a shared reality, sealed under the hand of God. Americans, may we all wake to the dawn this day with courage, for we are the whirlwind promised by patriots who fought to the depth of a last breath to birth America. And we are here. There is no other time to watch her rise again.
I have a very special guest with us this week. It's Joseph Massey, the poet laureate of the inaugural Trump administration, although it never quite came to pass, but that's sort of how we see him. Joseph Massey, you've probably seen on the Megyn Kelly show. He's been on there a couple of times. You might say she launched his career. Megyn is incredibly empathetic and sympathetic to Joseph's situation. She's a big-hearted woman. People don't really give her enough credit for that, but I see it in her. She cares a lot, and she really cares about Joseph Massey and his story. And we'll get into that in a minute, but first I'd just like to introduce you to Joseph. Hello.
Hi, thanks, Sasha.
We should mention that Joseph has a new book coming out called America is the Poem. And right now, after appearing on the Megyn Kelly show, it shot to the top, #1, across all platforms in the poetry section all over the world, not just in America. And it is actually in the top 50 all book sales at Amazon right now out of millions of books, which is incredible. And we will be giving away 5 copies of his book. So congratulations, Joseph. That's amazing.
Thank you. Yeah, it's gratifying and it's overwhelming in a good way.
You're so welcome. So I don't know how many people listening to this know your story, but I thought since it was Good Friday tomorrow, we might just quickly start about talking about how you came to be a man of faith. Now, I come from the left. I've been an atheist all my life, and maybe now you could say I've graduated to being an agnostic, which is a big step for me because I've always been an atheist. But you're not. You're a devout, I would say, and so much of your work is intertwined with your faith. So I just wonder if you could talk a little bit about how you got to that point, and if you want to tell a little bit about your story, you can do that now too. But we can talk a little bit more about that later as well.
Yeah, I'd be happy to. But where to begin? Begin from the beginning. I wasn't raised in a religious household, but my grandmother, she's passed away. She passed away a decade ago, so I can't ask her. But I've always wondered why she always had Catholic stuff like around the house, and like there were always palms hanging from crucifixes on Palm Sunday and things like this. And she celebrated a lot of Catholic holidays. So the Catholic Church was kind of always in the background. And I was baptized Catholic, even though neither of my parents are Catholic. I don't know. It's kind of a mystery. And but yeah, growing up, not religious, but always felt some kind of presence that was beyond the world and beyond myself. But and that longing to know whatever that presence is took several different forms throughout my life. I was involved in a kind of guru situation, a group called Ananda. They study the teachings of Paramahansa Yogananda. I did that for 5 years, learned how to meditate and breathe. And it wasn't, I wouldn't recommend it to anyone, but it wasn't a terrible experience. It wasn't a cult. But when I was canceled in 2018, which happened very suddenly, a letter went up on a WordPress website written by an anonymous person claiming that I called her hot at a poetry reading.
God forbid.
Yeah, that was the main accusation. And so another poet who I had been involved with romantically, it was an affair. It ended badly. I ended it by telling her husband. It probably wasn't the best idea, but she wouldn't leave me alone. That's a part that's always left out when other people have written about this situation, where they make me out to be, a villainous, creepy person. But this lady wouldn't leave me alone. I gave her a very polite no contact email, and she just persisted. And so I told her husband, and she had a vendetta from that point on. And it became worse when I had a book accepted for publication by a press that she desperately wanted them to publish her book. And jealousy is not in short supply in the poetry world. I think it runs on jealousy, much to its detriment. I mean, anyway.
But we should just say right here, because Joseph is too humble to say, like, he was really big in the poetry world, like very well known, very important. He was the kind of guy, like, I know it seems weird to say all these years later, but believe it or not, there was such a thing as like a poetry groupie. Like, if you were in that scene and you knew about Joseph and you were a young female, I'm just being honest here, you would want to be in that aura. You would want him to notice you. It's in every industry. It's in film, it's in music, it's in any kind of thing where men and women sort of intermingle. Well, not just men and women, but in the gay community as well. But Joseph had high status. And the thing that was so shocking about that Me Too incident was that so many women started to like pile on who were like women who fluttered around him, during that era. But when he says he's canceled, what he means is they took a loaded gun and they just destroyed his career, destroyed it, not just his career, but his entire identity almost. And they took him out of books. He was unpersoned for nothing, for nothing. There was never any due process. He had no case. It was just, you're done. We're kicking you out because we can do it. We have the power. Anyway, continue.
And that's all true. And yeah, there were women orbiting around me, but they were orbiting from a distance, because even though I was as successful as I was in that mainstream poetry world and becoming more and more successful, as each new book was published, I still rarely gave poetry readings. I didn't go to events or anything like that. I rarely ever did. And so a lot of the interactions that I had with people, many of those interactions just took place online, which I think has a lot to do with why, if anyone were to look up what I've been accused of, and there's very little substance to it, and there's never any screen grabs or screenshots of me being bad online, because I was having mutual consensual conversations with people that rarely ever even went into territory that was I don't know, not even R-rated. But when that letter dropped on Facebook, when the woman who I was in an affair with, she dropped that, and it just spread so quickly. And it seemed like everybody I'd ever had anything to do with, even one person I didn't know at all personally. I guess I met her at a poetry reading. I barely remembered it. And she piled on with a comment that I met Joseph Massey at a poetry reading, and he looked at me like I was a meal. So I was and she got comments saying, "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry you experienced that. It's so, you must be so traumatized." And I don't have no memory of meeting this person. And so many of the comments and accusations, if you can call them that, or on that level. But at that time, 2018, no matter what you say about the target, this man, it's fine. It's fair game. Believe all women. And the poetry world didn't have a scalp yet. And there was a lot of resentment, like we said earlier, like in the beginning of the conversation. Jealousy is in no short supply in the poetry world. And so people were happy to have an effigy of a powerful literary man. But meanwhile, I didn't really have power. I was not a professor. I didn't run a poetry press. I never offered literary favors to people. Like there was no casting couch. There was nothing to I was just a poet, but they painted me as this powerful person who used his privilege to, I don't know, have conversations on the internet, I suppose.
Well, it helps them to elevate themselves. If we learned anything from Salem, it's that for one winter, these adolescent girls had the town in the palm of their hand. Power they would never have had otherwise and would never have again. And that is intoxicating. And I think that a lot of women felt like, not just women, men, they felt like, as long as I'm doing the accusing, as long as I'm on the other side, then my status will be elevated while you're disposable. And if I can throw you away, then that can boost. You certainly saw that in your cancellation. A lot of these people who accused you got their status was elevated. Their personas were elevated.
Well, they were elevated in the moment, but it never translated into any kind of success, with their own work, because they're not good writers. And I think that you see this a lot, that with someone who does have a talent becomes a target. A lot of people with very little or no talent who are very frustrated, who may have an MFA in creative writing, and they feel entitled to have their book published. It's cathartic for them in a perverse way to tear somebody successful down. And the main people who came for me, and most of them I did not know personally at all, they're not doing anything now. I mean, one of them collects rats and posts about rats. One of them became a death doula, which is I'm like, like you almost drove me to suicide. I don't know. I hope you're not. I hope you're not doing that to your clients on their. But
that's terrible.
Yeah.
But it's a great story to me, because it's so absurd. The whole thing is so absurd. And what was so weird was how all these like lofty institutions, saw it that they had to take you off their lists and unpublish you and not invite you to their whatever they do in the poetry world. They have these gatherings, of important people. And it was so dishonest because, as you say, it had nothing to do with your work. Your work is beautiful. Your poems are incredible. And anyone who reads them knows that. And I think personally that you came out on the other side in a better place, because anybody who stayed on that side, that means they had to go along with all this stuff. And that eats away at the soul. It's a deception.
Yeah. Well, from the beginning, I mean, that the day that letter dropped, I knew my life as I knew it was over. As soon as I got the call from someone I hadn't heard from in a long time, and she asked me, "Are you okay?" I knew what was coming. And I knew life as I knew it was finished. But I was determined to not spiral out into rage, into drinking, into any number of behaviors I could have indulged in. I did post a couple apologies, but of course, none of it never went anywhere. Because it was just more, it was raw meat to them. I mean, there is no such thing as they would never accept an apology. They were actively working to drive me to either complete ruin financially and personally, or suicide. But I mean, what's the difference? I think they would have been happy for me to have offed myself. And so to get back to the faith thing, I was not going to off myself. And the group I had been involved in, with all of the meditation and the yoga and stuff, that just wasn't cutting it anymore, because the intensity of losing everything was so much. Breathing exercises, it wasn't cutting the panic attacks. It wasn't giving.
No, I know.
That thing I was involved in, this Hindu-based whatever, it was just not fulfilling. It wasn't sustaining in a way that the heart, I think, needs. The human heart needs. It was really just a bunch of exercises, and so I started hanging out around the Catholic Church, sitting in the grotto where they have a statue of Our Lady, and just kind of receiving whatever peace I felt there at the time, which was considerable. And then I eventually went through the process of being catechized by the priest there and being confirmed, since I was already baptized Catholic as an infant. But the church gave me stability, and it also, part of it being given stability was that it put everything that was happening to me in a much in a context that made it less of a catastrophe and more of an opportunity to grow and to find the grace in it, and also to forgive these people, because living with horrible resentments and hatred is only going to damage you, eat at you. I didn't want my heart to be iced over with hate. And I had to forgive them. That doesn't mean it's not turning the other cheek. It's I don't want anything to do with those people ever again. But I hold no contempt toward them. I don't wish them any ill will, because they have enough of it already in their own lives, in their own heads.
Mm.
You know.
What was your experience like from sitting on the bench to attending? Did you attend service? Did you attend church on Sundays, or how did that work?
Yeah, even before I was confirmed, I would go to Mass and just kind of sit there. Wasn't too sure what was happening during the Mass, but just to go and to be in the church. And just as often, I would go and sit in the church in the middle of the day when no one was there,
Wow.
and meditate, but in a different way, because the kind of Hindu style of meditation, you're emptying yourself out. But in a Christian meditation, you're allowing yourself to be filled in with the light of the Lord, with the Holy Spirit. So it's not an emptying; it's a filling up, and that was all so new to me, and so sustaining at that time, because there were many periods where I didn't want to live. I was hospitalized for a week. Because I couldn't handle the panic attacks anymore, and wanted to die. But I made it. I mean, by the grace of God, I made it. And as horrible as the cancellation was, the worst things ever happened to me. I mean, even though it's been years since it all went down initially, I still haven't really looked at all the pieces together, because it's too hard. But I still, though, can say with certainty that it was also the best thing that happened to me. And I mean that, because we wouldn't be talking. I would have met Megyn Kelly.
So how did you learn that this is a dumb question from somebody who knows nothing about religion, but how did you come to understand that it was about filling yourself up with the light? Did somebody teach that to you, or was it just something you already knew?
No, interestingly, no. And interestingly enough, it was just something I intuited, or actually experienced, when I was sitting in the grotto, just gazing at the statue of Our Lady there, and feeling the presence of God actually filling me up. I mean, because I was in an absolute, just the worst state of discombobulation, horrible depression, and anxiety. And it's like I was being repaired, as I sat and meditated, and I didn't even know how to pray. And yet I was being led through prayer, because it's not that complicated. It's just about opening yourself up and making yourself available to God's presence. And you could do that in lots of ways, but I did it it just happened. It just happened on its own. God taught me how to pray sitting there in the grotto. But then, as I was being catechized at Our Lady of the Valley in East Hampton, which is an amazing church and a beautiful church, the pastor there, Father Ryan Sleva, turned me onto various books by Catholic writers that were enlightening and teaching me more about prayer, about the life of prayer, and about the life of contemplation as a Catholic. And I haven't looked back. I mean, there have been bumps. Like, you used the word devout earlier. I don't feel like I'm devout enough ever, but it's okay. No one can be totally devout. We're human. We all sin. We all stumble, but it's not a setback when you stumble. That's something I've only learned recently. It's just another opportunity to get up and move forward.
I love that. I mean, it is the thing that we've been missing. We were missing on the left. I think I put two and two together finally and realized that all of this woke stuff came out of that need, that fundamental need for a deeper meaning, a deeper sense of purpose. But the problem with it is, as you lived through, and as I've now lived through, because I lived through something similar, it wasn't anywhere near as bad as yours, but I know that feeling, believe me, is this idea of redemption and a path back and forgiveness. That doesn't exist. That leave that to a 2,000-year-old religion to have that be, a religion that has staying power, as opposed to one that is so rigid and puritanical and judgmental that they offer no redemption. You're out, and that's it. You're a bad person, and you're not welcome back in our world. So
Yeah, it's they have all the hallmarks of a cult. I mean, it's almost a cliche at this point to call the woke thing a cult, but it really is and really does function as a cult. That glazed over look in their eyes, the way that you. I remember having a Zoom conversation during the lockdown with a friend, and I was just kind of starting to look at information about the vaccines, and I think we were talking about. I said it was hard. I remember telling her it's horrible that these healthcare workers, in particular, are being fired because they don't want to take an experimental vaccine. And I was saying, there is such a thing as like natural immunity. And as soon as I said the phrase natural immunity, no exaggeration, this friend of mine, who's I thought was a pretty sane, smart person, just put her hands over her ears like a child and was just going, like glitching out over natural immunity. I know.
I remember this is, like all of us sort of in 2020, I remember pulling away when I said to people, look, it makes no sense. This virus is microscopic. You're going to tell me that these like loose scarves wrapped around people's mouths are like doing anything? And we're all supposed to pretend like that's protection against, and then everybody was like, you have to, and it was so verboten to even say that much, to even question the masks. And I think that, like, I just had a conversation with my mom. I think I mentioned this on Twitter, but and I said, I was telling her about this dog abuse incident that I witnessed that was really upsetting. And I told her, I said, I'm so glad that the Beagle testing is finally over. And she said, oh, so am I. And I said, yeah, you can thank the Trump administration for that. And she's like, no. And I said, yeah, because it was under Dr. Fauci that those No, I'm hanging up. Goodbye. Click.
Yeah.
That was it. So, that is weird. And I don't know where it comes from, that kind of, like, I wouldn't do that to someone, even though I wouldn't want to hear them talk. I wouldn't do that,
Oh, that's the cult thing. I love reading about cults, and you don't want to like threaten to burst that bubble they live in. If you get anywhere near it with a truth pin, they completely bug out, and they hang up or they cover their ears. And I've never experienced that with anybody on the right. I've seen some spirited debates and whatever, but that the way the left has, or a large faction of it has, of completely dehumanizing someone to the point where they are absolutely willing to drive them to suicide. And now we see how far we've gone down the slippery slope with them celebrating actual murderers.
And it seems to be just getting worse. The violence is escalating, and they're,
Yeah.
So, all right. So let's talk about your poetry now. So what was the inspiration for this book? Because Joseph and I collaborated on his poem, America is the Poem. I did the video, he did the voiceover, he asked me to do it, I did it. It was going to be used, we wanted it to play at the inauguration of Trump, but that didn't happen. I don't even know who they picked instead, but it was, I don't think it was very good, but I don't remember it. Anyway, so that didn't happen, but was that the inspiration for the book, or did you already have the book ready to go?
Well, just to say that they did not have an inaugural poet at all, and no Republican president has ever had an inaugural poet, which was something I thought would help my chances. But I heard through the grapevine that they didn't want to seem like they were doing what Biden did, like, because he had Amanda Gorman.
Right.
And but what inspired the book was, really, it's just I realized I had a collection of work that spanned a whole year. So all the 4 seasons are in there. I like the way that held together. And I really liked I really liked the title, America is the Poem. And when I thought about making that the title of the book as well, it just that was it. That sealed the deal for me. I mean, speaking of jealousy in the poetry world and whatever, kind of helped me decide to do the book and title it "America is the Poem." It was a hour-long podcast between two very unhappy, very unsuccessful poets who were making fun of my inauguration poem for an hour. And it was interesting. I probably shouldn't have watched the whole thing, but they didn't really have anything specifically to say about the poem itself on the level of writing or the craft of it. So it was just all this knee-jerk bullshit. And as I mentioned on Megyn's show the other day, that they called me the poet laureate of white people, which I found really funny. But as they read the poem out loud and they were talking about it, like I could even like the muscles in their face, it was like they were twitching, like they were so like they didn't know how to really approach it. I think they thought they would just be able to mock it and just get a lot of jokes about it over the course of an hour. But as they read the poem, I think they could feel the power of the poem, and I think they hated it. They hated themselves for feeling that. That was my read on it. The way their facial expressions changed. So I was thinking that's a powerful title. That's a provocative title. I'm just going to call the whole book that. And I had a perfect picture for it that I took on 4th of July here where I live in upstate New York, of an American flag reflected in a storefront window. And I liked that, the American flag being reflected, the reflections kind of like looking backward, the flag itself is, flying forward. And it felt like that's where the country's going. And the poem itself, started writing it before Trump won. I was kind of writing it in my head and taking notes, but once he won the election, that's when I started working on it in earnest, and had some contacts close with the Trump administration or the Trump team at the time. So I know the idea went pretty far up, and I always knew it was a long shot. My goal, number one, was to just write a good poem, and I think I did that.
Yeah, no, I wish they had. I know that poetry is not exactly the Trump brand, but he could sell it. He can sell anything. But you know what I didn't do when I made that video was use your photos, and it didn't even occur to me until just now that would have been something we could have done, because Joseph Massey is an incredible photographer. Like, if I've said this before, but if he wasn't known for his poetry, he'd be known for his photos. So do your photos make it into the book, or is it mainly just the cover shot?
It's just the cover shot. My initial idea for the new book was to have a combination of pictures and poems. And it just wasn't feasible to have a coffee table style book published.
Yeah.
Because it would have to be good quality. I could have published it through Amazon, but the images would not have looked as good as they should. So that's something I'm going to have to hold off on doing.
Yeah, that would have been prohibitively expensive to produce something like that. So, that.
Yeah.
And so that would make the books themselves more expensive. And but the photos you can find on his Instagram. He publishes them, and they're beautiful. They always take my breath away. I just can't believe the eye you have for composition. Were you always a photographer, or is it just a new thing now that you have the smartphone?
It's solely smartphone related. I mean, I've always loved visual art, and I've studied it, and I love it. I love reading about it. But yeah, I didn't have a smartphone until later in life. I mean, I think it was like 2014 or 15 when I finally got a smartphone with a camera on it. But I just enjoy framing things and finding interesting compositions. I don't really consider myself a photographer, because there are photographers who know how to use an actual camera and develop their film and they know all the technical stuff. But I guess I'm just I don't know. I'm a snapshotter. I don't know what another term would.
I'll say something really pretentious. So forgive me
Okay.
in advance, but your photos are like poems. They speak from your heart. They speak to you the same way your poetry does. You know, I don't know if that's just because I know you and or if it really is that these photos just say so much, but they do. They say stuff, your photos to me. They speak to you. And those are the kind of photos I like the most. Like anybody can take a beautiful shot of a mountain or, the Half Dome of Yosemite or whatever, of a beautiful woman or whatever. But it's hard to take a photo where the photo itself speaks to you. It has its own sort of message it's conveying. And I'll post some of his photos in the content part of this podcast, so that if you want to go on my site, sashastone.substack.com, you can see them, or you can go on his Instagram. What's your Instagram?
That would be J Massey Poet. It's the same username as my ex account.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes it easy. That makes it easy.
Yeah.
So, what's your life like now? I know you talk about this on the Megyn Kelly show. She asked you about this, but you moved recently, right? You moved from Massachusetts, was it?
Yeah, I was living in substandard conditions in an underground apartment. I mean, right next to like a boiler room, like a Freddy Krueger style dwelling place. It was really, yeah. And then I moved into a nicer apartment in the same town, but it turned out that, no exaggeration, the neighbor above me, the neighbor below me, the neighbors across the hall, they were all drug dealers and not very good at what they do, because they were always getting caught, and they were police were out all the time. So the final straw was like when the police dogs were out, flashlights are being pointed in my own apartment, and the landlords refused to do anything, or said they couldn't do anything. I have some ideas about that, but whatever. A very very dear friend who lives near. I live near Saratoga Springs. She lives close by. And she helped me find this place. It's so much bigger. I've never lived in an apartment this large. I have 3 bedrooms.
Wow.
And tons of light. And my neighbors are not bizarre drug addicts.
What do you do with all those bedrooms? Do you have like an office and stuff? Do you use it that way?
I have a study / library, then the bedroom, and then the third room is quite small, and that is a room for prayer and meditation.
Oh, nice. Wow.
Yeah, I'm very lucky.
You are lucky, yes, blessed and lucky, but you're also talented, and that has brought you far. I don't think that Megyn Kelly would be, elevating and amplifying you just because you were canceled. She does it because she loves your poems, as you've heard her say and read. She's read your poems, and they touch her heart. And I think that is the power of your words. They're beautiful, and you're really good at it. I once wrote a screenplay about a bunch of poets that drive across the country. And so I had some experience trying to write poetry, trying to pretend to write poetry. And it's not easy. It's not easy to choose the right words. People think, oh, anybody can write, but it's really not true. To be a really good poet, you have to have talent, discipline, and intelligence and wisdom, and those things you have.
Well, not if you're in an MFA creative writing program. You don't. No. I think it's a prerequisite that you have no talent, and when you graduate 3 years later or whatever, you're even worse than you were when you started.
No, bad poetry is the best. There's a great scene in Woody Allen's film Sleeper, where Sleeper is a dystopian sort of 1984-ish look at the future. Woody Allen, he wakes up 100 years after they put him to sleep, and he's woke up into the future, and he meets Diane Keaton, and Diane Keaton lives inside. It's just like our world today. She lives inside this bubble. And she's completely disconnected from the rest of the world, and she's just in this happy little bubble. And she thinks she's a poet. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but no, she thinks she's a poet. And one of the funny scenes is she recites a poem, and it's so bad so embarrassingly bad. She actually says like the butterfly turns into the caterpillar, and the guy has to correct her and says, "That's a really good poem, but the butterfly, the caterpillar turns into the butterfly," and she has a total nervous breakdown over it, because she got it wrong.
Harold, I wrote a new poem today.
You didn't.
Yes, I did. A little boy caught a butterfly and said to himself, "I must try to understand my life and help others. Not just mothers and fathers, but friends, strangers too, with eyes of blue and lips full red and round." But the butterfly didn't make a sound, for he had turned into a caterpillar by and by.
It's deep. You're so obviously influenced by McCune.
Do you really like it?
Only one thing. They change from caterpillars into butterflies, not the other way.
They do? They do? Damn it! Damn it! Damn it, I always get that wrong!
Relax. I think you're so chocolate.
No, now the whole evening's spoiled!
No.
Spoiled! And I'm getting a headache anyway!
Luna.
Shoot, I hate to be wrong!
Luna, no.
No.
Sit down. Luna, sit down. Come on, sit down. It'll be all right, I promise. Now just relax.
I was having so much fun.
Come on. That's better.
But it's such a great way to describe how suffocating in that kind of environment, that MFA that you're talking about, that collegiate sort of woke, suffocating, cannot produce great work. It can't produce great movies or great comedy or anything. It's just because they don't have access to everything that's alive and thriving outside their bubble,
That's right. Yeah. And as far as the creative writing MFA industrial complex goes, the professors, many of them who know better, who know what they could say to these young poets to help them be better poets, they won't. They're scared of the students. They don't want to be. I know enough professors who teach creative writing to know this, because I've heard so many horror stories of a professor using the wrong pronouns and being dragged into wherever to talk to the director of the program, and so much of the poetry that's being pumped out today is it's political, and it's totally identity based, and it's like my lived experience kind of poetry. Right. And if you critique that, you're critiquing that person, you're critiquing their identity. And I think professors and other students are terrified to do that. And so the poets don't learn anything in these MFA programs, and they get pumped out thinking that they're a master of the fine art of poetry. And it's created quite a horrible situation, because contemporary American poetry is just a dead space. It's just a wasteland of zombie political poetry that's not effective, and there's no art to it. And and so in a way, like the cancellation, like I said, it's a gift. Another part of the gift was being forcibly exiled from a so-called community that was just going downhill artistically anyway. Mm-hmm. The more the politics became crazier, that like BLM started, and then all the white poets I know were posting the black box on social media, like bending over backwards to like prove that they're a good white person. And it was so transparently bogus and phony. And then the editors of journals were, they had to diversify everything, and then that just didn't improve the quality of the work that they were put. It's a real mess, and it just has gotten worse and worse and worse. And so I'm so relieved to be so far away from that world, and to be doing it myself, on my own, and to be thriving like this. It's it's amazing. I just feel so grateful.
Yeah, I'm so excited for you, and I do encourage you to do something like a night, a Friday night reading series. I mean, you probably don't want to do it, but I think it would be great to hear you. I would get your stuff on YouTube even as like an ASMR kind of poetry reading channel of just you reading poems, or maybe some video of like some water in a creek or whatever. Um, like our America is a poem that we did, but and not so meticulously, but something along those lines, like as an ASMR channel, man, I would totally subscribe to that. I know it would be huge. People would eat it up. And they wouldn't know
Oh,
who you are on YouTube. Anyway, let's talk, darling. We'll talk
it's a
about it.
brilliant, marketing move. Like I never thought of combining poetry with ASMR, but yeah, people love ASMR. So
I do. I consume it so much, and I'm always thinking about. But more than that, I think you have three things going for you, if I may. I totally sound like a coked up talent agent at a party, but I'm
go
trying to
for it. Go
say,
for it.
go for it.
I need help. I need all the help I can get.
You have three main talents going for you that would be suited for the medium, which is your voice. You've got a great voice. You've got the content, amazing content, and you've got a visual eye. And you can put those three things together to create videos that will bring you thousands and thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of people coming to to listen to the
We'll talk
call.
about that because I don't.
Let's talk about it, darling.
Yeah, well, just to say to listen to anyone listening, please watch the video Sasha made of me reading my poem "America is the Poem" because she did a totally brilliant job. I think you did it like overnight.
I pretty much did it overnight, but it was,
Yeah.
it was. I'll post it. I'll post it in the. I still have a copy of it. I don't think I have it on YouTube. I think it was only on your site and my site. Maybe I have it on
Yeah,
YouTube. I
you
don't
did an
know.
amazing job. Yeah, amazing.
Oh, thank you. I was so proud of it, but also I felt that's why I'm sort of urging you to do this, because for me, like just listening to the poem was uplifting for me when I needed to be uplifted. Not like, oh, I'm so happy, but spiritually fulfilling, and it reminded me of what it is that we've all been fighting for. This, what we have on our side is we love our country, and our aspiration is in that direction. We are patriots. We love our country, and we want America to be alive and to survive, not to be ruled by people who, want to tear it down to the studs and rebuild it as something different. And a lot of people will read that as like, I imagine those dumb poetry people. I didn't watch that video of them talking about you. I'm sort of tempted to do it now, but I imagine they talked a lot about race, right?
Oh yeah, they said my poem. They said it wasn't diverse enough. Like, how do you know? How do you know? You don't know what I was looking. Like a lot of the imagery is when I was on a train going to Chicago. How do you know there weren't people of color in? I don't know.
Well, I put people of color in the video, so they, if they saw the video. But also, I know what they mean. I know exactly what they mean, because that's what wokeism is. I was a woke blogger for many years. I was, before it was even called that. So I know that when you're writing, you're always supposed to orient your position from the place of race and gender. And everything has to be reinterpreted that way. So you can't just talk about a movie or history or patriotism or the flag or anything without this other stuff that they've applied to it. I'm not saying that they should have just, shut up and sit down and never try to fight for their rights, and that there wasn't oppression and all that. We all know that there was. But that's not what wokeism is. It's not trying to clean up our perceptions and make us all on an equal level. It's more like we're changing the hierarchy. So someone like Joseph Massey doesn't matter anymore. His poems don't matter anymore because he's a white male, for one thing. And this stupid cancellation happened, but they think that it's okay now to judge people on their skin color and their gender because they've decided that it's okay. And in the other direction, it's racism. It's actual racism.
Oh, it is. I mean, it like definitionally, like, yes, it's racism, but don't tell them that.
Don't tell them that. Right. So how's your life these days out there in New York? Are you are you happy? Are you fulfilled? I know that both of us are sort of living our life living our lives like monks or whatever, like,
Yeah.
and we have for years, both of us have, just like, permanently deathly single forever.
Yes.
But
Well, I'm resigned at this point to just
you know,
stay single. That's it. I'm
I
done.
listen, I know I catch that vibe from you, but I want to encourage you that you should continue to look. Men and women are different in that way. Women, when it's done, it's done. But men, it's not true. Men can, stay sort of virile and alive for years, and you still have a lot left. I would encourage you to keep thinking about it, keep your heart open to it, and not totally close your doors to finding somebody and, you know, maybe getting married, having a kid, all that can still be in your future. Not in
Well,
mine, but in yours, it can
I
be.
it's highly unlikely, but if I'm out having coffee and Elvira, Mistress of the Dark, walks up to me and gives me her number, I'll take it. And I probably will text her, but that's not going to happen.
Well, my advice to you would have been to move to a red state, but I think you're kind of in a red state area. Isn't upstate New York red state-ish?
I think they call it purple. It's like
Yeah.
half and half. I mean, from my window, there's a trans flag flying off someone's house. But then on the other side, on my side of the street, there's still a Trump sign. And you go a little bit further up, there's some more Trump signs. So it's really mixed. But
Yeah.
I was living in a college town called East Hampton, which is in the 5 college area, as it's known, where Smith College is there, which is completely
Oh
off the
boy.
wall.
Oh boy.
What are the other ones? I don't know. Hampshire, UMass Amherst. They're just
Yeah.
it was crazy. It was like living in a psych ward, and
That's grim. That is
it was
grim.
it was just getting worse and worse. And so up here, even though obviously people have different political opinions, which is great, we do live in America. I've not noticed any kind of aggression or that kind of weirdness at all. People seem genuinely kind up here. This is I'm near Saratoga Springs, but this part is more rural and definitely more working class. Saratoga Springs, the city it's very liberal, but I've been to that city enough to know that they're not shoving it down anyone's throat. They're just some rich liberal people who walk their poodles, and I'm not offended by that.
No, you're really lucky. I live in a hideously. My town is it's 96% white and probably 99% liberal, and it is kind of scary to live here, honestly. People are very, as you would expect them to be. They're not quite Smith College level deranged, but they're not far off. They're the older kind, the boomer type.
Yeah.
But it is not that fun living around people like this. It's so funny. I never would have thought in all my years growing up that the fun side would turn out to be the right. Like that would be the fun side. That would be the let your hair down, go on a boat and dance around like to music. Like I just never would have considered it would be the conservatives who would be the freer of the two sides,
Yeah, I never would have imagined it either. I mean, the poles, North and South Pole, have just totally flipped. It's just flipped. The axis flipped. It's an interesting thing. I mean, I'm old enough to remember when all my poetry friends, when I was in my 20s, they were so against censorship, and they really like to talk about censorship. They were all about free speech and whatever. And some of these same people participated in canceling me and in canceling others. It's a strange thing.
It really is.
Yeah, okay. It's very weird. No, it's just I can't help but still feel a little bit of whiplash from how things have so drastically flipped.
I know. I mean, I envy you that you have God. I envy you that you have religion. I wish that I had a way to get there because I have some pretty dark nights of the soul. I won't lie about that. But what gets me, what haunts me so much, isn't the businesses that have decided, like, for instance, for me, what happened was they took away my ticket to the Oscars every year. They took away
Mm,
my ability to write a freelance report for Women's Media Center, which I'd done for 10 years, all because of that article. Like, I didn't do anything else. It's
mm.
just, but what really hurt the most, I think, was like a really good friend of mine that I had known very well for like 15 years, just abruptly ending the friendship over that. Did you have
Oh yeah.
anything like that where like somebody that you really trusted, that you really knew and thought you knew you could just end your relationship?
More than I could count right now. I mean,
Mm.
I mean, maybe at least a dozen, like close poetry friends, like people I've knew since I was in my 20s, early
Wow.
20s, even as a teenager. And yeah, some of them just ghosted completely, no explanation. Some made one person just like kind of made a story up to be irate about regarding me and used that as the excuse to say, I need a break from you. Well, the break has been going on for 7 years now. I don't think that
Wow.
break is, and it can stay that way. But
That's how I feel. I don't even think I keep waiting for the day when I get a letter from him to say, I'm so sorry about that. It was so silly of me. I don't think it's going to ever happen, but if it did, I know that if I was like Christian and I was good in my heart, I would just be forgiving and nice about it. Like that would be the better thing to do.
well, you don't have
But
to be nice. You don't have to be nice. It's just, but you don't have to give it a much energy because I've received messages like that from people who are sort of apologizing.
mm,
People who left and then they come back and um, yeah, I'm gracious enough to say thank you or whatever, but then I just block them or tell them explicitly, just don't contact me again. I wish you know
yeah,
ill will, but don't, because they're only doing it to make themselves feel better. They're doing it to assuage their guilt. You
right.
know?
They know it's wrong. They know it's wrong.
Yeah.
My friend knew it was wrong, and he did exactly the same thing you're talking about. He dredged up some grievance from the past that he had never talked about before and just used that as an excuse. But I called him out on it. I said, that's bullshit. That's not why. You know it. And he said, yeah. And then
Yeah.
he finally admitted it. No, it was definitely just because of Trump. But someday I think that maybe it'll occur to him, maybe it won't. But it was the one that I think stays with me just because it's still so shocking to me. And you're telling me that these people did this to you more than a dozen. Like that just shocks me. I would never do that to somebody. Never. I don't have it in me to do that, no matter what they did, you know? Um,
Yeah. Yeah. And it's one of the most horrific things that you can do to someone is to socially ostracize them. That's what drives canceled people to one of the main drivers for them to want to kill themselves, to have your
mm,
social world removed. Um, it's horrible. And if I didn't have a spiritual life, I don't know. Who knows what I would have done. I don't think I'd be here. I don't think I'd be alive.
mm,
Um, but yeah, but that's another gift of cancellation. You do figure out, or not? You don't figure it out. You find out who your friends are and who they aren't. You find out you have very few.
find out you have very few. And the ones who, in my case, I don't know if this is your case, but in my case, the ones who still are my friends, there's a canyon between us, between what we can talk about and what we can't. Like, we really have to stay off certain subjects because it's so deeply embedded in our lives, all this stuff, especially on the left. Their whole worldview revolves around hatred of Trump, fighting that MAGA side, and if somebody that they love is now part of it, how do they do that, and so they try because they know that it's immoral to do anything else. They know deep down that they can't be one of those people, but at the same time, they think, I have nothing to say to her. What can I say to
Yeah,
her,
Yeah, I have a couple. I have a couple of relationships like that, friendships, and yeah, we don't talk as much anymore. It's like because it's
Yeah.
so glaring. That the gulf, as you put it. It's how do you maintain a friendship when there's a gulf between you? You just can't bring certain things up, or they're going to glitch out. And it's always a glitch. There's one poet in particular who's remained my friend through everything, and she's a great person, but she absolutely has a bad case of TDS. And the day of the election, when I posted a picture of myself wearing a Trump T-shirt, she was apoplectic. I mean, she was beside herself, like texting me, "I can't believe you would do this." I assumed she already knew what my politics were or how they changed, but
Yeah.
I guess not. She was really bent out of shape about it, and there was nothing I could say and really there wasn't anything I wanted to say. I didn't have to explain myself. She was interrogating me about it, and yeah. So, but we do still talk occasionally, but it's not the same, and it's very sad.
That's right. And so when I go on, like, I know, I don't know if you use Facebook, but Facebook was so much a part of my life as a Democrat that I can't use it anymore. I go back on there and I'm just like, I don't even relate to anything that's happening on this. But their sea of emotion is so strong that you can't post things. I mean, they force people in the MAGA side to be combative and to fight them and to mock them because they don't allow them any other way in. They don't treat them like human beings. They, like if you want to post something, they will scream at you and throw fits. And so, to chase you away. So it's not even worth it unless you take that other side and you just do it to troll them or to make them upset. And that's
Well,
so tempting, right?
yeah, for them to treat a Trump supporter or someone they think is far right, fascist, whatever language they use, for them to treat someone like that they feel is that far opposite of them ethically and every other way, to treat them with dignity, then that humanizes that person, and they can't humanize the other. They can't humanize the Trump supporter because then it totally complicates their stupid rage that they can't even articulate. It would force them to have to really articulate why they have this hatred, and they're not willing to do that. And they have to see you as a monstrous figure, as less than human, which explains, I'm making quite a leap, but it's not really a leap at all. It explains why they will gleefully celebrate murderers.
Right.
Because they don't consider a CEO of an insurance company or whatever to be a human being. And it's so bad that they don't even consider a young white male to be much of a human being. That guy's turning into I don't want to say his name anyway, but the guy who stabbed the white guy through the heart. They're turning him into the Black Luigi.
Right.
And
I know.
It's very strange.
And the Abrigo or Kilmar Abrigo Garcia is now like George Floyd. It's like these are their heroes. They have to be because to them, they're people of color are their religious symbols, and trans people are their religious symbols. So they can't see the crime. They can't see the sex offenders hiding behind in the transgender outfit so that they could go molest girls, which they do. They can't see the criminal who crosses the border and then murders somebody, right? Because they're treated like, and the same with the stabbing. They need the other story to be true because that's their entire sense of purpose, their worldview. And this is unfortunate because it's destroyed culture because it is a disconnect from reality. They don't see people as who we really are. All right, so now we've got to get to your poetry. I was hoping that you could read some of it for us, if you feel like it.
So I'll just read one poem.
Okay.
And this is the first poem in the book, America is the Poem. And it relates back to what we were saying when I would sit in the grotto and sort of to started to kind of find my way into the Catholic Church, into that faith. And it's titled The Relief. After a week spent beneath swells of panic, I give my mind permission to lapse into lilacs. June wind unfurling the scent, every sense caught up in a rush of memory, straining to align with present time, as I sit on a bench by a small grotto where Our Lady gazes. Her lids open and close as shadows wave across her face, and memory stops squirming. To be seen and to see through her sight, that sees the one who sees all at once. The relief to be unbound by words, weightless in prayer, the heart broken open, if only for the length of a breath.
Thank you. God, that's so beautiful. We can't have one more. Just one more,
One more?
please. One more, please. Encore.
Encore.
Read a longer one. No.
A longer one?
Yeah.
That was pretty long for me.
Yeah, it was. It's so beautiful. Oh, so beautiful.
All right. Ember Tide. On a walk, I think about death until the thought exhausts itself, back to the breath cycling through this body, a fumbled prayer vibrating my chest. On a walk, I notice how snowbanks contract into winter's grit, strewn over asphalt, paper saturated into pulp, plastic crushed into dim glitter glinting in gravel. Marion blue, full-mast sky beams behind a neural network of bare branches. I stop walking and look up, untangling the knots in mind, until dizziness overcomes me and I drop my gaze to gather my balance, sight fixed on a point where the horizon vanishes and the unseen returns my gaze.
Wow. Wow, it's so good. It's so
Thank
good.
you.
And you guys buy that book, America is the Poem, on Amazon. I'll put a link to it on the I guess I'll say show notes. It sounds so pretentious, but the show notes and a link to his page, which used to be called Dispatches from the Basement, but is now called Poetry Dispatches on Substack. And there you can become a paid subscriber, which helps him buy groceries and pay the rent and support the arts. It's almost a charitable donation if you think about it.
Yeah.
And I'll have the America is the Poem video there, as well as Joseph will pick out commenters to give the copies away. And we'll have
I get to pick.
You get
Great.
to pick. You get to pick. I thought the first 5, but I think it's better if you pick them.
Okay.
And just give me the names and I will write to them privately and get their address.
Okay.
I will send them the book. And it's been so nice talking with you.
It's been great. Yeah. We've known each other a long time, but we've never actually talked. So it's
Have
good.
we never talked before? Is this really the first
No,
time?
it's the first time.
I know we wanted to many times before, but finally, after both of our lives have been wrecked.
What better time?
And reborn.
That's right.
All right. Well, hopefully, maybe we'll do it again. Who knows?
All right.
All right. Have a good night. And thanks again.
You too. Thank you, Sasha.
Alrighty. Bye.